Right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here I am, Magnus Nielsen, otherwise known as Lord Londonstone, exploring London, the centre of London, and taking you on a stroll through the streets as they are today in the 11th of October 2025. And at the present moment I'm starting from when I finished off last time, just outside Victoria Station, built in 1858 as a railway station to destinations mostly in southeast England. Also you've got the underground station, which was built in the 1860s and 1870s with the Circle line to connect with other important rail termini such as Paddington and Euston and King's Cross and so forth. Well, I think we'll start getting moving, shall we? So here I am, and what I'm doing is just walking across this road, and I'm going to turn this around so you can actually see where I'm going. If you can't actually see me, not everybody wants to see me. Just walking down here back towards Victoria Street, and here we have this building I showed you before, the Victoria Palace Theatre, with the statue of Anna Pavlova, the famous ballerina. And that, ladies and gentlemen, you can see there, that is just behind the buses, that is Little Ben. That's a clock. Again, I spoke all about these things in my previous video, so I won't go over them again. What I want to do now is do what I have to do from time to time, and that is cross over the road. And because we have a red light, like a good little citizen, I just wait here until the light changes, which may be any moment, or we may have to wait here for a while. Let's just see. We don't know. Modern buildings all around here. These all went up about 20 years ago, I think. Maybe that one over there, that's a bit earlier. Now I can't see whether the lights have changed or not because I've got a coach in the way. Oh, rats. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear, oh dear. I hope... There we are, now it says red again. That was naughty, but then it was naughty of the coach. But then there's so much traffic on the road that it's actually very difficult to not transgress from time to time. So Victoria Station, Victoria Underground Station, there you have a Bureau de Change. Now that is the Bureau de Change which I use whenever I need to change foreign money into sterling, because I'm told, and I believe it's true, that they are the people who give the best rates. Okay, so Bureau de Change, just over there on the left. What we're now doing is heading more or less northward. This is one end of Victoria Street. The other end is down by the Abbey. And a lot of this part of London has been developed over the part, well, really also early 21st century. Now this, very interesting, is Sir Simon Milton Square. Sir Simon Milton Square, and it's in honour of, would you believe it, Sir Simon Milton, who was born in 1961 and died in 2011. Right, so that's what, an age of 50. Leader of Westminster City Council. He was also Deputy Mayor of London, that is Greater London. So that's why he's remembered here. And this is Sir Simon Milton Square, with all the modern buildings. So this is what you do if you come out of Victoria Station and you want to make your way towards Buckingham Palace, the home of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. died in 2022 after a 70-year reign. That is the longest reign in British history. I can't say that it's the home of His Majesty the King, King Charles III, because King Charles III does not actually stay in the palace overnight. He lives in a place not far away called Clarence House. You can't actually see Clarence House because it's behind a high wall and behind tall trees, because the King likes his privacy, and who wouldn't? Anyway, we're just coming down Sir Simon Milton Square, which is, like so many London squares, it's not a square at all. It's really just a street. There we go. But it's a pedestrianised area. So, now what does this say? This really tells us something about Sir Simon Milton Square. We're up here, and you see it's not really a square at all. Well, difficult to actually describe what shape of geometry. It's a very long oblong. I can't think offhand of any square in London which is actually square, except possibly Russell Square and Grosvenor Square. Otherwise, squares come in all shapes and sizes. Now, across the road here, we have a pub called the Bag of Nails, and its original name was the Bacchanals, but nobody could pronounce Bacchanals properly, so they started calling it the Bag of Nails. Here we have, we've got a wall garden up the Rubens Hotel, and across the way we have the Royal Mews. What we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to approach Buckingham Palace from the rear, coming up from behind, as it were. There's other ways of doing this, of course, but I want to go this way because I want to show you what there is to be seen around here. So the Rubens Hotel, and just down here we've got more modern buildings, and we're still waiting for the light to change. Oh, come on. There we go. Right, off we go. Now across the way, over on the left-hand side here, just outside the Rubens Hotel, we have the Royal Mews. Now the Royal Mews.
Good afternoon.
The Royal Mews. No, all these things in the way. That's just the way things are. I'm afraid. I'm sorry. This is a series of videos about life in London, especially the streets of London. As you can see, they're pretty congested. So that's just the way it is. There's nothing I can do about that. But here, the Royal Mews, the original Royal Mews, used to stand on the site of Trafalgar Square, and it was removed in the 1820s when they built Buckingham Palace and moved here. Now the Royal Mews is the place where they keep the cars and the coaches which King Charles III uses on special occasions like coronations or the state opening of Parliament. So that's what a mews is, except if you walk around places like South Kensington and Belgravia, you will find this term mews being just the street which runs behind the main streets. It was originally the street where the coach drivers, in those days of course we're talking in Victorian times, people used to make their way around London on horse-drawn coaches, and the mews was really the stables for the horses and also the place where the drivers used to live and they had lived in a little Mews flat, and that was in Victorian times, and that was the way things were and continued up until around about the Second World War. Then of course people didn't engage servants quite so much, so the houses became, or the flats became, vacant and converted into Mews dwellings. So that's why you have these Mews flats in places like Belgravia and South Kensington. Right, what's this? Oh, this is called Britannia. So this is where you get your this is where you can get all your souvenirs of Britain. There you go. Amazing, amazing. Come in, we're open. Souvenirs, souvenirs. More souvenirs. House of Wonders. Would you believe it? The London souvenirs, ladies and gentlemen. Across the way there you have the Royal Stables. This is once upon a time the place where they kept the horses that drew the carriages and coaches. I think they may even be still there. I'm not 100% certain about that, but there'll certainly be the state coaches are drawn by horse, so it's very probable. Okay, now here, as I said, this is all, well, that's now a little place where you can get a bite to eat. What's it called? It's called Pronto al Mangia. And here, ladies and gentlemen, just a cut above everything else, is the Buckingham Palace shop. So again, this is really souvenirs of Britain, but they all relate to Buckingham Palace, really, and royalty and things like that. So you see the windows here, and I think you also go round the corner. Oh yes, you've got corgi dogs, you've got a nice apron, lions and unicorns, and teacups and teapots. That's very English. Okay, so now what we're going to do is cross the road. And here they don't have lights for some reason, extraordinary. So we just have to be very careful. We look round to the right, nothing coming. And we look round to the left, nothing coming. And here we have the Royal Mews shop. And again, you can get chinaware, you've got teapots, you've got teacups, all sorts of things. Okay, and what we're now doing is heading down towards the palace. We're in a place called Buckingham Gate. So heading down here now, you'll see these trees a little way ahead of us, and you'll also see the King's Gallery. Now the King's Gallery used to be called the Queen's Gallery, and then of course when the Queen died and the King came to the throne, they changed the name after a while. And the King's Gallery is famous for the display of works of art, paintings, furniture, quality furniture, which is kept in the royal collection, and it's on display all the year round. And the public can go in for a small fee, as indeed it's a small fee to go into the Royal Mews, but there we have it. And the King's Gallery was built really in what used to be the private chapel of the palace. Now that was part of Buckingham Palace that was struck by a bomb in the last war. Okay, so this is, oh, you can get the city sightseeing, golden tours, hop on and off, toot bus. They come up here, it's one of their drop-off points. There's one of them coming down here. Now what is this? Is this, it's a red route, and I think this is for, is it toot bus or is it city sightseeing bus? I used to work on one of those many years ago. This is the King's Gallery, the entrance to the King's Gallery, and they have a shop as well. And here, as I say, we're now approaching the rear, or not so much the rear now, but the south side of the palace. And you can see that golden, that honey-coloured stone. Now that is Bath stone, and Bath stone is rather special. It's quarried in a place called Bath, would you believe? There's a very fine, high, superior quality limestone, which is very heavily impregnated with iron. And when the stone comes out of the quarry, it's white, but after it's been sort of put in place for a number of years, it oxidizes. In other words, it rusts, as iron tends to do. And it produces this extraordinary honey-coloured effect, which is rather special. And you see this in all the quality buildings around London. You see Bath stone is used extensively, and not only in London, but in other parts of the country. This, on the other hand, is Portland limestone from Portland in Dorset. And I say it doesn't have the iron in it, so it doesn't rust, but although it's another form of limestone. And so that is very much more recent than the building which is made of Bath stone. That's the building in Bath stone was the work of the architect John Nash, who was the favourite architect of King George III. And then they added other pieces, bits and pieces on it in Portland limestone, so that's why you get the clash of the colours. Gold and silver, if that's what you like to think of it. Right, now then, what we're doing, so coming around the south side of the building, and you can see, quite apart from the guards with their guns to prevent anybody from trying to sneak in, this down here is the entrance to the palace when the palace is open. Can we actually have a peek through there? Not really, no, but there is the what they call the ambassador's entrance. So when Buckingham Palace is open to the public, and that is when the king goes off on holiday, the staterooms, there are 19 of them, are opened up to the general public, and the public can go in there and you can see the staterooms where all the sort of ceremonial business of the monarchy has performed, the knightings and the banquets and Queen meeting with ambassadors and judges and all that sort of thing. That's where it all takes place. Okay, going down here. Now, leading sharply to the right, we have Buckingham Gate. And I spoke about Buckingham Gate a bit earlier in I think my previous video. I talked about Buckingham Gate. And the street that leads directly ahead of us now is Birdcage Walk. And that will take you all the way down to Parliament and the clock tower and the bell called Big Ben. Okay, so we make our way around here, and you'll see that they have all these impromptu taxis. What? Yes, it's all right, we're just having a look. Thank you. Price list. Right. Okay. Hello. Victoria. Hello. Victoria, 25. Westminster Abbey, £25. Big Ben, £25. London Eye, £30. Trafalgar Square 30 times. Yes, okay, that's right. No, that's all right. I'm just doing a video for London. Thank you. So it will cost you £25 if you take one of those vehicles to walk the distance which we've just walked to get to Victoria Station. Okay. Now, what we're doing is making our way towards the front of Buckingham Palace. What time have I got? It's 20 minutes. We've been here for 20 minutes. Can you imagine? And I haven't really started to talk about the palace at all. There were several buildings on this site before there was Buckingham Palace. There was in fact a village here in the Middle Ages which was swept aside, the village of Ebury. That disappeared when Henry VIII wanted to use the ground for a hunting ground. So Ebury vanished, and then in the early sort of 1624 there was a house here, and that burnt down. There was another house built on the site, and that burnt down as well. And so what really happened, story goes back to John Sheffield, the Duke of Buckingham, who built a house here in 1703. Now that house was very much smaller than the palace. In fact, the palace is 40 times the size of the original building. But anyway, John Sheffield built a house which he was called Buckingham House, would you believe, because he was the Duke of Buckingham. And the Sheffield family lived there for quite comfortably up until 1761, when the building was then sold on to King George III, who was then about 20 years old. No, just a bit older than that, but not much older. So it was used as a residence for his wife, Queen Charlotte. A very sort of private building. You can see the guardsmen there. And interestingly enough, they're not the soldiers with the red tunics and the bearskin helmets. It's another regiment, and I imagine they will be probably a regiment from Canada or possibly Australia or New Zealand, because we get this from time to time. People come down to Buckingham Palace wanting to see the changing of the guard, and then they find in fact they're not looking at guardsmen, they're looking at soldiers from some other foreign regiment. But because the King is also the King of Canada and the King of New Zealand and the King of Australia, that's why we have these regiments from these different countries. Okay, I'll just move around a bit. So I was talking about selling the building on to King George III, and eventually, after he died in 1820, his son George IV came to the throne. Now George IV was very, very good at spending lots and lots of money. That's probably the best thing. But to give him his due, he spent it on high quality works of art. So we should be grateful to him for that. He didn't just throw it around willy-nilly and squander it all, though he squandered a very great deal. But anyway, it was he who commissioned John Nash to rebuild and redesign Buckingham House as Buckingham Palace as a royal residence. And so they laid out the plans and they started building. And I think Parliament did actually vote them £250,000, which in those days was a lot of money. But they started running into problems almost immediately, and the whole thing went over budget, and it was delayed, and King George IV died in the end. And then his brother William IV came to the throne. That was in 1830, and he lasted for about 7 years, and then he died. And the palace wasn't really finished until the reign of Queen Victoria, so she moved in 1837 when she came to the throne. And at that time you had the palace, which was set back a bit. Then you had two wings, the southern wing, the northern wing, and then you had an open courtyard with an empty sort of face on what is the east side. And then just immediately in front of it you had a replica of the Arch of Constantine in Rome, made of the finest Italian marble, and that cost £28,000, again an enormous amount of money in that time. So that's how things looked when Victoria came to the throne. She married Albert in 1840 and started to produce a large family. So what they did in the end was they removed the arch to a place called Marble Arch, because it's a marble archway. So it's in Marble Arch in the northeast corner of Hyde Park. And they built the frontage. Now, not in this style, I might add, but the original frontage really enclosed the courtyard completely. But they had this place where they had the royal balcony, and that is still the place where members of the working royals come out on special occasions like coronations or any other special occasion when the members of the public want to see the royal family. They come out here onto the balcony and then they wave at the public, and you get large numbers of members of the public. This area right in front of the palace can contain a crowd of about 3,000. So let me just take you here. Now, what I have to do is talk about the ceremony which takes place here, called the Changing of the Guard. People come up with all sorts of extraordinary ideas. They come to Britain. Everybody who comes to Britain wants to see the Changing of the Guard. I didn't see the Changing of the Guard myself, although I was brought up and lived most of my adult life in London. I didn't see the Changing of the Guard until I was about 37 or 38. And that's when I had to start doing some work, training for tourism. If you ask most Londoners, have you seen the Changing of the Guard, they'll probably say no. And if you say, well, don't you think you ought to go and see it? They'll say no. The people who come to see the Changing of the Guard are mostly foreign visitors. They all want to see, whatever else they want to do, they want to see the Changing of the Guard. Now, just to avoid misunderstandings, when you see the Changing of the Guard, some people get the idea that it goes on from every day of the week, from dawn to dusk. No, that's not the fact. It's usually, sometimes it changes, so you have to check this with Google. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays at 11. Okay? Just check that out with Google, but that's usually the way. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays at 11. And when you come here, there will be huge crowds. And if you really want to see the Changing of the Guard, what you have to do, if I can just explain, turn this around face again, here we are. You have to position yourself immediately in front of the railings like this, and what's more, you have to stay put. Be here for 9:30. Be at the palace for 9:30. So you've got to get up early and you've got to come down here and be here for 9:30, and you have to position yourself immediately outside the railings, and you have to stay put for 2 hours. Now, the moment you shift yourself, if you move, somebody else is going to move in and take your place, and the chances are you won't see anything. And what's more, ladies and gentlemen, you need to be warned about the pickpockets and the sex pests and all the other creepy people who are in this area. So look after your belongings. And also, it's a nightmare. You need to be told this as well. It's all about spouses getting separated from spouses and parents getting separated from children. If you don't make some previous arrangement, if you just, as I say, if you go back to the area where the ambassador's gate is, or the ambassador's gateway to the palaces, and just make some arrangement to stand up. Let's use the King's Gallery. If we get separated, we will meet outside the King's Gallery. Then everybody, otherwise you're going to spend the whole morning running around. As I say, there are all sorts of other thoroughly undesirable people. And that immediately begs the question, what are the English people doing to prey upon their foreign visitors like this? Isn't that disgraceful? Well, it's disgraceful we've got them here, but London is an international city, and because we have so many foreign people, we have a certain amount of foreign crime as well. So the disreputable people are those from different countries, not just Britain. Which countries they may be, well, I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to go. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go down that road. Just to say, be careful of your belongings when you come here. It's like this in every country in the world, by the way. It's like this in Paris. It's like this in Berlin. It's like this in New York, San Francisco. Jerusalem, all sorts of shysters around the Wailing Wall, interfering with the religious activities going on there. So just look, just be intelligent. Now this, what I'm showing you now, is the Victoria Memorial, and this was put up here in 1911. It's made of the finest Italian marble, and it was unveiled in the presence of His Majesty King George V, at that time was also the Emperor of India. And it was unveiled in the presence of his cousins, one of whom was Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, and the other one was the Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. And the thinking about putting this memorial up was when they had trouble in Europe and they had to sort of soothe diplomatic relations, the idea was that all of the crowned heads of Europe, who were at that time related in some way or other to Queen Victoria, would make their way up the Mall from Trafalgar Square. The Mall is all the way down there, and I'll go down there, I won't go down there now. And they would then come up to the palace and they would talk about things quietly and decently over a cup of tea and get the problems of Europe sorted out. That was at least the thinking. Things didn't quite work like that. As I'm sure you are all aware, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to remind you that Europe went to war in 1914, and the war lasted for 4 years, and an awful lot of people got killed, and there were a number of Nicholas lost his crown and his throne, and so did Wilhelm, but we kept ours, just about. And here what you can see is a statue of Queen Victoria. She's had a new nose. I don't know whether you can actually see that on this statue, but somebody knocked the nose off by accident, so they had to fix her up with a new nose. Anyway, so what I've done is I've come all the way from Victoria Station and I've come up to the statue of Queen Victoria, and you can see the emblem of victory, that golden statue there. Actually, that's not gold at all, it's copper and nickel. It wouldn't be made out of gold. But anyway, this is the Victoria Memorial. The idea was that when the crowned heads of Europe ever came up to visit the King of England, the Emperor of India, what they would be immediately confronted with was a statue of their grandmother. So I'll sign off for the time being, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, I hope that you'll give me a like. You can also comment. I mean, just say whatever comes into your head. If you don't like it, say that you don't like it. But it's nice to know one way. Share and subscribe. I think that's also what I have to say. So what I'll do is just turn this round so you can see my ugly face again. Here I am. If I turn all this way around, you can see the statue. No, you can't. Yes, you can. There we go. So I'll just say over and out, and I'll do some more stuff on the palace, but in another video. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Over and out.